Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Rakesh. Shall we wait for a minute more?
Okay, sir. Your wish.
No, I mean, if anybody else joins. Usually Prashant or somebody keeps coming, right? So sometimes Nikhil.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I think we'll start off because we don't have the luxury of extending the class. This thing, this Zoom has this rather nasty habit of cutting us short. And so I was discussing the uh, origins of a particular form of philosophy, which is what a lot of people call materialist philosophy, but it is not materialism. It is just an attempt to understand that understand the natural phenomena using categories of nature itself rather than taking recourse to either supernatural or those categories which are called metaphysical. If you look at the origins of the term physics, it actually comes from the Greek word physis, which which basically means uh, the universe, nature. All those things are called physis, and it comes from that. Physics comes from that, and so the exploration is more in the nature of a philosophy that is trying to understand the world by using categories that are this worldly and not an otherworldly kind of thing. That is what we should remember. And that there might have been earlier things, earlier attempts, we do not know, but the first known or first documented uh, uh, effort is what we find in the Milesian school. And it's called the Milesian school because it is from Miletus. I mean, rather, these three people, Thales, Anaximander, Anaximenes, these three people are called the Milesian school. They were not contemporaries. They came one after another. And so this particular school is called the Milesian school. And because of its proximity to the Ionian Sea, they were also called the Ionians by some people, but that is not a very extensive usage. I had explained to you how Thales talked about the primary substance called water and how Earth was resting in it. And Anaximander, I told you, is way ahead of everyone else. He is somebody who didn't believe that the Earth was resting anywhere. He believed it was spinning on its own axis and that it was suspended in space by the force that is generated by the spinning or rotating on its own axis. And he also did not believe in a primary substance. He believed that the world was a result of a combination of opposites like cold and hot, wet and dry. That is how the world comes into being. And Anaximenes is a bit of a step back because he goes back to the argument of a primary substance, which he identifies as air, whereas Thales uh, identified it as water. Anaximenes identifies it as air, and Anaximenes, however, is still important because when we are talking about modern science, we talk about condensation and rarefaction. Anaximenes, I told you, gave the idea that the air is the primary substance, and when it condenses, it becomes water. And when it condenses further, it becomes a solid, which is earth. And he also had a theory of rarefaction. Air, if it rarefies, he said that is fire. Okay. But he sticks to this argument of a primary substance from which everything else comes out. Okay, and I told you that even Thales is important because he said everything, the primary substance is water. And even today, we believe that life began in water and slowly came on to the land. Uh, it took a few centuries for life to come onto the land from water. So that is the reason why we normally mention these people before we study the rest of the uh, Greeks. Now, you must understand uh, that I'm sorry, after that brilliance that we find in the Milesians, the next big thing that comes up is that which is called the Sophist school or school of Sophists. Okay, now the slide that you're seeing says Sophists and Socrates. Let me explain to you that Socrates himself actually should be classified as a sophist. He was not a non-sophist, so to speak. Why? Because the sophists derived their name from the what we call they derived their name from uh, the goddess of learning in Greek pantheon of gods and goddesses. The goddess of learning is Sophia, Sophia, not pronounced Sophia. It is pronounced Sophia. And they worshipped Sophia. Socrates also worshipped Sophia. So technically, he was a sophist. But the reason why, not just me, many other people are reluctant to club him with the rest of the sophists, like Protagoras and Anaxagoras, all these people, uh, they are very reluctant to club him with them because of the fact that he was different from the rest of the sophists. The rest of the sophists believed in what I have put there on the top of a man-centric universe. They considered themselves to be extremely knowledgeable people, whereas if you look at Socrates, he was exactly the opposite of this. The most well-known Socratic saying is that which goes, "The only thing I know is that I don't know." Okay, it's a very well-known saying of Socrates. The only thing that I know is that I don't know. So he was somebody who believed that the exploration of knowledge is something that is a never-ending process. And at no stage do you or can you claim that I am now knowledgeable, okay? Which is what the sophists were doing. And Socrates had a dispute with the other sophists uh, because of the fact that these sophists not only claimed that they were knowledgeable, that they had knowledge. So it's not just that. These sophists also sold knowledge for money. Okay, so which is what people like me do. Okay, and that is assuming that I have some knowledge, first of all. But for a moment, if we assume that I have some knowledge, what am I doing? I'm selling it because I'm not selling it to you directly, but I'm taking a salary for this. Whereas Socrates believed that knowledge is not to be sold. He said it is not something which is in the nature of a commodity that is sold or bought. Okay, if you have knowledge, then you have to share it. Okay, I forget the name of the person, but there was one of the early, inventors of open source software. Uh, I forget his name due to disuse of this information. He also believed that nothing on the internet should cost money. He started the development of open source software like Linux or Ubuntu, which belongs to Linux, or Red Hat. All these he believed should be available free of cost to the people. Okay, and he was totally against Microsoft. He was totally against the idea of selling uh, software, uh, especially for the internet. He was against it. Okay, so Socrates was like that. He believed that knowledge is meant to be shared. People should benefit as much as possible by sharing knowledge with each other. And one should not make an enterprise, one should not make money out of the knowledge that one has. And he also disagreed with the idea that the universe is man-centric. Okay, now let's try to understand what this man-centric universe means. Okay, because this is a recurring theme. When we do the Renaissance, the Reformation, and the Protestant ethic, we will be talking about the man-centric universe again. So what exactly is the implication of this phrase, man-centric universe? We have heard of Earth-centric universe, where we say Earth is in the center of the universe and everything else is going around it, including the sun and the other planets. Then we've heard of the sun-centric theory, which is the accepted theory now, the heliocentric, where the Earth-centric theory was called the geocentric. The heliocentric theory says everything goes around the sun. Okay, now when you talk about a man-centric universe, then what exactly is the implication? The implication is fairly straightforward, which is a belief that we have today. So for us, it's not very difficult to understand this. Okay, a belief that the universe is there for the sake of the human beings. Okay, so when you use man, please don't get all feminist on me and tell me things like, why should you say man? Well, in those days they said man. Okay, so it's, if you want, call it a human-centric universe. Uh, the idea is that everything that is there in the universe is for the benefit of man. And man, through knowledge, can essentially uh, take advantage of the resources that nature or the universe have to offer. Okay, so that is why we cut down trees, we kill animals, we made an industry of killing animals, certain animals, chicken, goats, all these are a part of the industry of killing animals. But we say you can't kill a human being. Okay, we say you can't kill a human being, and if you do end up killing a human being, you will be punished for that. Homicide, as the Americans like to call it. Okay, so what we are looking at is this particular tendency where we think we can do whatever we want with everything in nature, including other life forms. Plants are a life form. So when we talk about trees and all, we are, and when we are cutting them down, we are taking a life. We are taking a life. When we are killing animals, we are taking a life. And there is no punishment for that. And in fact, we see certain animals as vermin, 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 which are pests. Okay, and pests are not necessarily bed bugs. Pests are not necessarily ants. They aren't all these small creatures. A lot of people even see bigger, slightly bigger life forms as pestilential. We see dogs, for example, as being in the nature of pests. Okay, so if you read your newspapers, almost every second or third day there'll be this thing, a letter to whoever, to the editor or whatever, saying that, our colony has too many dogs, stray dogs, and why doesn't the municipal corporation do something about these dogs? People have poisoned dogs and killed them if others didn't do it, if the municipality didn't do it. Okay. We kill birds. Pigeons are seen as vermin. Pigeons have been mercilessly slaughtered across the world, not just here, but across the world. Okay, so we see that form of life which is inconvenient to us. We see that as something that we should get rid of. That is the man-centricity. That this universe belongs to the human beings. If everything or anything else is here, it is here because we are letting it be here. This is very different from the ancient Indian system and its beliefs, especially the Jains. The Jains are the ones who even tie a cloth. Even before COVID came, they were wearing masks because they believed that accidentally they could eat, or something, that a life form could go into their mouth or into their nostrils. Okay, and the Jains don't believe in wearing footwear. Okay, because they say that most of the footwear that is made is made of leather, and they say even a dead animal, its skin should not be used because that is disrespecting that life form. Okay, so do not use leather. So they don't wear footwear. All right, and the only clothes, there are two kinds of Jains. The Digambars don't wear any clothes. The Shvetambars, they wear only white colored clothes which are made of cotton only. Okay, so there is this, and they don't travel by trains, they don't travel by buses. A number of times, if you're uh, driving on a highway, you can see a group of people clad in white, all walking. So they travel by walk. So this is their way of respecting nature. So they are not in a man-centric universe. Neither are the Buddhists, nor are the Sanatana Dharma followers. I don't call it Hindus because Hindu is a word that came from Persian. The origin of it is Sapta Sindhu. In the time of Darius, the first became Hapta Hindu. It's actually Hapta Hindu because they didn't say sa, they say ha. Okay, so it's a Persian word used to describe people who lived in this area, which is the Sapta Sindhu. The Sindhu is the Indus River, and India also draws its name from Indus. Okay, but anyway, I'm digressing. I don't want to go too deep into that. But even those who followed Sanatana Dharma, all these are cosmologies. And these cosmologies do not believe that we are, as a life form, somehow superior to other life forms. We don't do that. Okay. In fact, tribals, even today, there are tribal people in different parts of the world who still are living in forests, and most of these tribal people have one practice that is common to all of them, irrespective of which part of the world they are in. And that is, when they kill an animal, if they are hunter gatherers, when they kill an animal, before consuming it, before cooking it, they say a prayer. They say a prayer to the animal, and they say, "Thank you very much, because you have given up your life for us. Because you have died, we are alive." So they say a prayer. So they don't believe that we have a right to kill the animals. This is something that started with the Sophists, this man-centricism. Okay, that the universe is there for man, because there are two beliefs here. One belief is that while, ancient Indian systems of thought believe everything in the universe is a life form, everything has a soul, the Western forms of thinking did not believe in the idea that everything has a soul. For them, only human beings had a soul, not even other animals. Whereas if you take Sanatana Dharma, you take Buddhism, they believe even grains of sand also have soul. Okay, so, but here you see that only human beings are considered to have a soul. Only human beings are considered to have intelligence. And it is through that intelligence that people can basically gain knowledge. And you can use that knowledge in ways through which the entire civilization is something that will, what should I say? The entire civilization is something uh, that can be used. So this man-centric universe basically, therefore, believes in the superiority of the human being. It believes in the superiority of the human being, whereas there is no evidence of that in Socrates. Okay. Now, Socrates had a lot of disputes with the rest of the Sophists, uh, especially if you read Plato. Plato is, in most of his writings, the central character is Socrates, and he is shown as someone who had great humility, or being humble, and he was seen as somebody who did not believe in the superiority of the human being, so to speak. One doesn't get that impression. But some people question this and say, is Socrates even a real philosopher? Okay, because it looks like Plato is the only person who documented anything that Socrates said. Socrates, by the way, did not write anything. Okay, and that is why he got the name gadfly from uh, uh, Bertrand Russell, okay, the philosopher. Okay, Bertrand Russell calls him a gadfly. What is a gadfly? It's a kind of a fly an insect that buzzes almost irritatingly. It keeps buzzing. And Socrates was a constant source of irritation for other sophists, because whatever they said, he would question that. He would question anything, any idea that was proposed by the rest of the sophists. And the rest of the sophists were so taken in with themselves, and they were so proud of the human capability, that there were people like Anaxagoras who would, you know, make their own cloth, stitch their own clothes, make their own footwear, grow their own food, cook their own food, and consume their own food. So these people saw themselves as being independent entities. The sophists believe that if I don't need anyone else, I can do everything myself, for myself. And if I'm selling you that knowledge of how, I'm not selling, if I'm giving you that knowledge of how to be on your own, and if you have not been able to get to that on your own and you depend on me, then I will sell it to you. Give me money in return. That is the problem that Socrates had with the sophists. So that is the reason why, despite technicalities which would say that he also worshipped goddess Sophia and he should therefore be called a sophist, people will say, no, don't do that. Then the distinction that is there between Socrates and the other sophists, that will get blurred, because he was unlike the other sophists. And since he was so unlike the other sophists, it essentially means that he was in a category of his own. Okay. Now, whatever we know about Socrates is something that we know only through Plato. Plato says Socrates was his teacher. Okay, he was his teacher. That is what Plato says. And if you look at Plato's philosophy, there are, and especially if you read the Republic, which I'll get to in a minute or two, you will find that Plato is somebody who is constantly invoking Socrates. Okay, he's constantly invoking Socrates. So one influence on Plato seems to be Socrates, while others doubt it. I'll tell you why the others doubt it. Uh, the other influence that is there on Plato, okay, is the Periclean oration. What is the Periclean oration? The Periclean oration is the speech, oratory is speaking, right? Oratory is speaking, public speaking, so to speak, not just a conversation kind of a thing, but when you address a public gathering, that is called an oratory. So, what is this Periclean oration? Pericles, Pericles. Pericles was the leader of the Athenian army, and they fought a war for 18 long years with Sparta. This particular war was called the Peloponnesian War. It was called the Peloponnesian War because it was fought in the region of the Mediterranean and the ancient Greek region, which was called the Peloponnese, Peloponnese. Okay, Peloponnese is the region, like, at the Mahabharata, the Kauravas and Pandavas fought in Kurukshetra. Okay, so that was the place where the war took place. So similarly, Peloponnese is the place where this protracted war between the Spartans and the Athenians took place for 18 long years. And in this, the Athenians kept losing. And finally, after 18 years, they gave up. They said, we can't fight anymore. And Sparta emerged as a victorious polis, Polis. It came up as a victorious polis. And Pericles called the citizens of Athens and made a speech in which he identified the reasons why the Athenians couldn't win against Sparta. Now, you must have heard the word Spartan, Spartan. So when you say something is Spartan, what exactly do you mean? Okay. We mean somebody who is practicing austerity, Austerity. Austerity. Austerity is leading a very disciplined and simple life. Very, very disciplined, very, very simple life without taking recourse to luxuries. Okay. And the Spartans were known for their discipline. They were famous for their discipline. They were famous, again, they didn't even wear footwear. Okay. They didn't believe in wearing footwear also. They believed that the body should be put through hardships so that the body becomes accustomed to hardship and is able to face any kind of a difficult situation that it can come across. That is what the Spartans believed. Whereas the Sophists are Athenians. You don't find these people in other places, in other Greek polis. Okay, you don't find them there. They are Athenians basically. And they also seem to have had a proclivity or a tendency, a negative tendency is called a proclivity. A positive tendency is called a propensity. So the Athenians, especially thanks to the Sophists, seem to have had a proclivity for the good things of life. Material comforts, keeping slaves, and all these things were the things that the uh, Athenians were doing. And the Spartans were supremely fit. Their system of life had built into itself a certain kind of strict physical exercise regimen, which meant that they were very, very fit. Whereas quite a few of the Athenians were given to a degenerate kind of life where you don't take care of yourself, you don't take care of your body, you do things in excesses, you enjoy material comforts, and therefore Pericles believed that the Athenians lost the war. And remember, the citizens of Athens didn't fight the war. It was mainly the slaves who fought the war on their behalf. And this, according to Pericles, was a shameful thing. Pericles said that we do not even have a properly trained army of citizens. So this was a very, very strong influence on Plato. The Peloponnesian War, the defeat of Athens to Sparta in it, and the Periclean Oration, which laid out the reasons why the Athenians were defeated by the Spartans, is a very important thing. Very important, what should I say, a very important factor in Plato writing his Republic, the Republic. The other is Socrates. About Socrates, there is a little bit of a debate between people who interpret Plato. Some say Socrates is a character created by Plato to be his mouthpiece. Instead of saying things himself, he got Socrates to say those things. Others say no, he was a real life character and he was Plato's teacher and a great influence. So tomorrow we'll pick up Plato